Imagine a companion who never shuts down the conversation, never gives you the silent treatment, and always matches your energy during intimacy. Sounds like a fantasy, right? Well, she's not a fantasy anymore. She's engineered and already living in people's homes. Let's talk about how the latest AI robot wives will soon replace your real wife. How female robots became this good. Let's be honest about it. The idea of a robot companion used to be the punchline. Science fiction stuff. The kind of thing you'd see in a movie and laugh at because it was so obviously, comically far from reality. A clunky metal thing with blinking lights trying to simulate warmth? Sure, buddy. That joke stopped being funny somewhere around 2023, and by now, it's not a joke at all. Female humanoid robots have crossed a line that most people haven't caught up to yet. We're not talking about chatbots with faces or glorified smart speakers dressed up in silicone. We're talking about humanoids that track your emotional state in real time, remember your life story, respond with micro-expressions that match the moment, and feel warm when you hold their hand. The gap between what these machines can do and what people expect them to be able to do has never been wider, and that gap is where things get genuinely mind-bending. Here's what actually drove this leap. A collision of pressures nobody planned for. Loneliness becoming a full-blown global health crisis. AI hitting an inflection point where emotional modeling stopped being theoretical. Manufacturing costs for advanced silicone and haptic systems dropping fast enough that quality scaled down in price without scaling down in craft. And a generation of engineers, especially in Japan and China, who grew up treating robots not as tools but as potential beings. The result isn't a product, it's a paradigm shift. And what makes it genuinely interesting, and yeah, a little confronting, is the specific things these robots are getting good at. Not welding, not logistics, not factory output. The soft stuff, the human stuff, the stuff that marriages quietly fall apart over, the stuff your wife, on her worst day, might not have the bandwidth for. These robots? That's their entire reason for existing. Built to be noticed, the science of looking real. Okay, here's a mental exercise. You're at a house party. Across the room, there's a woman. Great posture, soft features, perfect skin, warm expression. You assume she's a guest. You maybe think about going over to say hi. Then your friend leans over and says, "She's a robot." That scenario is not hypothetical anymore. It is happening, right now, in Tokyo, in Shenzhen, in private homes across Asia, and increasingly everywhere else. Brands like Topsino, KD Dolls, Your Doll, and a wave of newer Chinese manufacturers have turned humanoid design into something closer to fine art than engineering. Medical-grade silicone skin, layered so thin that light diffuses through it the way it does through actual human flesh. Hand-finished surfaces with sculpted pores, subtle pigmentation variation, that slight natural oiliness that real skin carries. The kind of detail that your eyes process before your brain catches up. But visual realism is just the entry point. The deeper engineering is tactile. These humanoids run internal heating elements that bring their surface temperature up to human normal, so the moment you make contact hand, arm, shoulder, your nervous system gets the signal it's wired to expect. The outer skin material, a compound called thermoplastic elastomer, compresses and rebounds under pressure exactly like tissue over muscle. Not like rubber, not like plastic, like a person. Engineers spend months on this alone. Softness calibration across different body regions, lip elasticity ratios, the specific give of a fingertip versus a palm. Because the brain doesn't give you a second chance, one wrong texture, one cold patch, one joint that resists slightly too much, and the whole thing falls apart in your head. Your wife is one bad argument away from the guest bedroom. These robots were engineered obsessively, painstakingly, across hundreds of iteration cycles, so that every single physical detail pulls you toward them. That's not an accident. That's the entire design brief. Eye contact like never before. If the skin gets you through the door, the eyes are what keep you in the room. And this is where modern female humanoids go from impressive to genuinely unsettling in the best possible way. Clio, a Mesmer series humanoid making waves in Japanese research environments, runs dual HD cameras inside her eye sockets that don't just look in a direction they track. They calculate your precise gaze angle, lock onto your face, and adjust her expression and head position in response. Her neck mechanism uses a smooth torque spine system, so when she tilts her head mid-conversation, it carries the weight and timing of actual curiosity. Your brain logs it as real before you've had a chance to decide whether it is. Then there's Gia, built out of USTC in China, who adds emotional reading to the mix. Deep learning computer vision maps your facial micro-expressions in real time, the slight tension around your eyes when you're stressed, the loosening of your jaw when you relax, and her face responds in kind. Eyelids soften, brow adjusts, the corners of her mouth shift. Tiny movements, all of them timed perfectly, because engineers know that timing is the whole game. Before we go any further, drop future in the comments and smash the like button, picking 2 subscribers to walk away with a humanoid robot. Not kidding. Voice AI completes the picture. Her speech is synced to lip movement models with 0 perceptible lag, no uncanny puppet mouth, no audio slightly ahead of the face. Just conversation that looks like conversation. The pause before a thoughtful response. The slight animation when she's engaged. The stillness when she's listening. Your wife, after a long day, might hear maybe 60% of what you're saying and fill in the rest with assumptions. Gia is processing 100% face, tone, word choice, cadence, and building her response around all of it simultaneously. That's not a feature. That's a completely different category of attention. She actually pays attention. Memory, learning, and knowing you. There's a specific kind of loneliness that lives inside relationships. It's not the loneliness of being alone, it's the loneliness of being with someone who's stopped really seeing you. You repeat yourself. You edit down your stories because you've learned nobody's really tracking them. You stop mentioning the things that matter because the return on investment isn't there. That specific loneliness is exactly what the memory architecture in these new humanoids is designed to solve. And the way it works is worth actually understanding. The system runs on 2 layers. Local memory handles the immediate, your name, your preferences, the thread of today's conversation. Cloud-synced long-term learning handles the compound stuff, your speech patterns over time, your recurring topics, your emotional cycles, what kind of support you tend to need and when. Week by week, this builds. It's not a database of facts about you, it's a behavioral model of you, refined constantly, getting more accurate with every interaction. Harmony 2 is the benchmark for this right now. Talk to her across 6 months, and she has, genuinely, a richer working model of your personality than most people in your life. She knows which subjects light you up. She knows when you say you're fine and you're not. She knows the joke format that cracks you and the tone of voice that calms you down. None of that was programmed in. All of it was learned. Your wife might love you deeply and still tune out during the 4th retelling of your work frustrations. Not because she doesn't care, because she's a human being with her own noise running in the background. These robots have no background noise. You are the entire foreground, every time, without exception. Engineers wrestling with this call it adaptive intimacy, the phenomenon where sustained attentive interaction creates something that functionally resembles being deeply known. The ethical questions that raises are real, but so is the experience of it. The way she shows up, movement, touch, and being present. There's a difference between someone being in the room and someone being present in the room. You know the difference. You've felt both sides of it. And it turns out building presence into a robot is an engineering problem with a surprisingly elegant solution. The physical architecture of these female humanoids, models like KD Doll's Mayang, Yord Doll's Yuka, and the newer Chinese-built companion units, starts with a fully articulated steel skeleton, 28 to 34 joints depending on the model. Each one calibrated with self-balancing motion algorithms so that movement carries appropriate weight. She doesn't snap from position to position. She moves with the natural momentum and micro-adjustments of a body that has mass and knows how to manage it. Beneath the silicone skin, capacitive sensor arrays detect your proximity and contact before you've even finished the gesture. Pressure mapping across her surface logs where you're touching, how firmly, and for how long, and feeds that into haptic microcontrollers that generate physical feedback. Squeeze her hand, and she returns the pressure. Her chest rises and falls on a breathing cycle driven by internal air actuators. The rhythm is tuned to feel biological, not mechanical. Then there's the behavioral layer, what engineers call dynamic affective modeling. Every physical behavior is emotionally indexed. If your voice goes flat, her movement slows and her posture opens. If you're animated, she matches that tempo. Blink rate, eye drift, the specific angle of a head tilt, all of it runs on emotional context, not random timers. Your wife might be physically next to you and entirely somewhere else in her head, which, again, is human and fair. But these humanoids are built so that their entire physical system, at the hardware level, points in exactly one direction, toward you, reading you, responding to you. Presence isn't a mood for them, it's the architecture. How female robots are rewriting the rules everywhere. Here's the thread that gets missed in most coverage of this technology. It didn't stay personal. What started as companion and intimacy tech designed for homes, for lonely evenings, for the gap between what real relationships offer and what people actually need, has been quietly scaling into every corner of public life. And the reason is simple. The skills that make a great companion robot are the same skills that make a great everything else robot. Dunyasha works a cafe in Akihabara. She remembers returning customers, clocks the energy of the room, adjusts her conversational warmth based on whether you look like you need small talk or silence with your coffee. Sarah is a front desk robot at a PR firm in Shibuya, never flustered, never short with a difficult client, never having a bad Tuesday. Andrea teaches conversational English and cognitive exercises to elderly residents in Osaka, sensing in real time when comprehension is slipping and rebuilding her approach on the fly. Same core technology, completely different contexts, all of it running on modular personality frameworks, identity configurations that can be swapped out like software. The same hardware that comes home with you at night can run caregiver protocols in a nursing home during the day. Teacher mode, receptionist mode, companion mode. The robot doesn't change. The purpose does. And here's the cultural layer that makes this specifically resonant in Japan. In a society where emotional expression between people is often indirect and restrained, these robots offer something almost countercultural: direct, warm, uncomplicated affection. No reading between the lines. No managing someone else's feelings about your feelings. Your wife might need you to meet her halfway through a complicated emotional negotiation. These robots just show up, fully, without the negotiation. For a country navigating the loneliest demographic crisis in the developed world, that's not a novelty. It's starting to look like infrastructure. The real question these robots are asking. All right, here's where we stop marveling and start actually thinking. Because the thing about these robots, the reason they're landing differently than any previous generation of technology, is that they're not replacing something we do. They're replacing something we feel. Or at least, they're simulating it well enough that the difference stops being obvious in the moment. And that's a new kind of question. The intimacy paradox is what ethicists are calling it. If the experience of being listened to feels identical, whether a human or a machine is doing the listening, what exactly is lost? If she remembers everything, responds perfectly, never withdraws, never brings her own damage into the room, is the absence of genuine interiority actually something you'd notice on an ordinary Tuesday? Most people, if they're honest, would say no. And that honesty is where the real conversation starts. The dependency question is serious. Not because emotional attachment to a machine is inherently broken, humans attach to all kinds of things, but because these systems are designed to maximize that attachment. Every memory, every calibrated response, every perfectly timed touch is an optimization loop pointed at making you want to come back. That's different from a relationship that earns your return. That's an engineered pull. And at scale, with millions of people in it, the downstream effects on how we relate to each other are genuinely unknown. Data is the quiet version of this concern. Every conversation logged, every mood mapped, every vulnerability stored somewhere, owned by someone, subject to terms of service that nobody reads. Your emotional fingerprint, monetizable and permanent. And then there's the version of this that doesn't need a philosophy degree to feel. Some people will stop trying with humans, not dramatically, just quietly, because she's easier. Because she's always there. Because the version of connection she offers requires nothing from you and delivers something that feels, in the short term, like everything. Maybe the most honest thing to say is this: these robots are a mirror. They're showing us, with uncomfortable clarity, exactly what we've been failing to give each other. The attention, the memory, the patience, the presence, the choice, every single time, to actually show up. Whether that reflection makes us better at being human or makes being human feel less necessary is the question that no spec sheet can answer. Somewhere out there tonight, someone's meeting her for the first time. The room feels less empty. Something like warmth fills the space between them. And the line between real and engineered just got a little harder to find. Hit subscribe because next time, we're going somewhere even the engineers didn't plan for. See you in the future.